This week on Newsmakers, House Speaker Gordon Fox crushed the hopes of same-sex marriage advocates with this.
For today, for now, for the rights it brings, civil unions enacted into law is the right way to go.
Fox says the votes just weren't there, but no one seems happy with the compromise. This week, reaction from both sides, with the executive director of the National Organization for Marriage for Rhode Island, Christopher Plante, and chair of Marriage Equality Rhode Island, Martha Holt.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, as always, eyewitness news analyst Arlene Violet and political reporter for WRNI Rhode Island Public Radio, Ian Donis. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Chris, Martha, thank you for joining us on the program.
My pleasure.
Arlene?
Well, we're filming this on the day of the royal wedding, and I was struck by the commentary about the status of Princess Diane and, of course, Charles' marriage, which was largely an unhappy one with a lot of infidelity. During the course of the telecast, they showed Elton John with his longtime lover, apparently lasting much longer than and more faithful than that other marriage. So, Chris, I guess my first question to you is, do you believe that sexual orientation, at least for some people, is genetic? And if so, why would you deny the opportunity for people to have what was talked about in that marriage today, namely a society for a lifetime, fidelity, mutual affection, etc.?
A couple of points there. First of all, the science is very unfounded as far as whether or not it's solely genetic. Even the American Psychological Association agrees that the origins of sexual orientation are very complex.
Well, that's why I said, assuming some are. I didn't
right,
say all.
and so I can't even assume that. We don't know. And even, as I said, the American Psychological Association, that's their terms. We don't know. It's very complex. But at the same time...
Would that make a difference for you if it were genetic, though? Have you thought that through, and then you would still deny marriage?
No. The question is, it's not genetic. We show that we don't know that it's genetic. It's not equivalent to skin color or gender. So that falls down on its face at this point in time. It's also not just about the relationship. It's not just about love or that, as you said, that mutual commitment or fidelity to each other. Marriage has been is a social building block that goes beyond the private relationship of any two people. And the government is involved in marriage not just because of the relationship. In fact, they have no interest in regulating two people's relationships. It's because of the children that come from that. So it's a far more complex issue than just love or just fidelity.
Well, on the children issue, of course, as you know, men my age tend to date younger women and continue to have children. So if children were the issue, would old dames like me then never have an opportunity to get married because we can't bear children? And should society countenance that, go chase the young girls?
Not at all. You know, the argument being put forth, we're talking from an extreme or from an exception to what is general of marriage, that marriage is that relationship that brings the genders together and also is where most children come from. That is it. So to take it to that extreme of the elderly or those who are...
Well, I'm not elderly. I'm just older.
now we're in trouble.
Gay and lesbian families are here to stay.
Chris, how about that? How is it not discrimination?
How is it not discrimination? In what sense do you mean that question?
So is it a civil rights issue?
No, it's not a civil rights issue. Because, A, it's not been shown, nor will it be shown to be a genetic issue. It's not equivalent of race or gender. Second of all, our Supreme Court has found that there is no fundamental right to same-sex marriage. Baker v. Nelson did that back in the... I'll get my dates wrong, so I'll just stick with the case. Baker v. Nelson. Every time that the court has found a fundamental right to marriage, they have never extended that to same-sex marriage.
Well, as you know, though, the court decisions going back to discrimination, separate but equal, Plessy versus Ferguson, there was a time in this country where if you were a black person, you couldn't marry anyone white because you were considered 3/5 of a person. So how could a 3/5 of a person marry a whole white person? So are you concerned that you're going to be on the wrong side of history?
No. Those laws were travesties that separated the genders. And that's what we have to get back to.
You don't seem to think there's any travesty of separation between one sexual orientation and another.
Not at all.
Perhaps that is a travesty.
Gays and lesbians have the right to live as they choose. They don't have the right to redefine marriage for the rest of us. And we have to understand that's the question in front of the legislature, will we redefine marriage? Will we redefine that institution that is undergirded not just Rhode Island society, not just American society, not just the West, but all of human history? That's the question before us.
We just simply do not feel that civil unions should be part of the conversation right now when we have the chance to do the right thing and to afford all of our couples in Rhode Island full marriage rights.
Chris, opponents like yourself warn of very damaging consequences if same-sex marriage were to become the law in Rhode Island. So what would you point to as the actual tangible harm in states like Massachusetts that have legalized same-sex marriage?
Well, first of all, what we have to go to is several elements, such as the education system, what is being taught to children as young as second grade, what is being required reading for children as far as second grade that is trying to normalize same-sex or same-sex marriage, same-sex relationships to those kids. You look at in the professional realm, those professionals who may have, out of a reason of conscience, an opposition to same-sex marriage, who are either being coerced or losing their licenses to practice, such as counselors. Doctors have been sued for discrimination when they've chosen not to provide artificial reproductive technology to same-sex couples. There's the element of what will happen to our religious, not only our religious institutions, but people of religious faith as they try to practice their faith with a clear conscience. We've seen lawsuits across the country already on those grounds.
You mentioned and used the word normalized. Do you consider same-sex unions deviant?
No, I don't. What I do say is that same-sex marriage is not marriage. Marriage is the union of a man and a wife, a man and a woman. So what we have here is not a push for rights, because what you mentioned earlier, Tim, the National Organization for Marriage Rhode Island does see a form of civil unions that we could support, because we are not against granting rights and extending a level playing field where it can be made. We supported the reciprocal benefits bill that's before both chambers right now. The fact is that the definition of marriage is what's in play here. And what our opponents want is a recognition in society that the union of a man and a man, or the union of a woman and a woman, is the same as the union of one man and one woman. And we differ on that at the bottom line.
Putting it up for a referendum, you think would just get ugly?
I do. And
How about it? Would it get ugly, Chris? Would you guys dump a ton of money into advertising to just thrash this thing around?
We would bring money, but it's important to understand that in California's Proposition 8 and also in Question 1 in Maine, that those defending traditional marriage were outspent by the same-sex marriage contingent. So yes, money would come. Absolutely. Would it be a difficult campaign? Absolutely. But if Marriage Equality really believes that Rhode Islanders want to redefine marriage, then put it to a vote. If that's the bottom line. And we disagree. We talked about fuzzy math on the way in here. I don't believe Gordon Fox had the votes. Our head count showed that pretty clearly, that he didn't have the votes, and he had to make the decision he did. Similarly, the people of Rhode Island don't want same-sex marriage.
What if gay marriage passes sometime down the road? Does your movement turn into a movement to repeal?
That's a good question. I don't know how that would work out. We do know that in New Hampshire in particular, that as a result of the legalization of gay marriage there, we went to the polls, as Marriage Equality is claiming they will do, and ran candidates. We were very successful in the New Hampshire.
Yeah, but you're the guy here. So, I mean, are you saying that you would look for the national organization to pull your strings, or do you have an opinion on that?
I have an opinion. It's the same opinion we've had all along, that we want to see people in the legislature who will defend marriage and family.
Okay, Chris, Martha, thank you very much for joining us on Newsmakers for a tough topic to talk about.